If I ask you to imagine people doing philosophy, does the image that comes to your mind look something like Raphael's painting, The School of Athens? For many, philosophy conjures images of wizened men roaming hallowed halls, arguing about capital T truth. While impressive, this depiction is not necessarily relatable for those of us living in the 21st century. In fact, I found it so difficult to connect to this representation that I thought there may have been a mistake when I received my first faculty job offer in a philosophy department. Who, me? How can the work I do be considered philosophy when I wasn't debating metaphysics, I wasn't composing syllogisms, I've never read Nietzsche in the original German, and most importantly, I didn't have a beard? It wasn't until I came across Scottish philosopher Mary Midgley's essay, Philosophical Plumbing, that my perception of philosophy and my place in it started to change. Midgley argues that philosophy is not simply an elite intellectual activity, but rather a necessary skill that has much in common with plumbing. She writes that plumbing and philosophy arise in elaborate cultures like ours that have beneath their surface fairly complex systems which often go unnoticed. Both have grown imperceptibly over the centuries and are changed piecemeal to suit the needs and demands of societies above as they branch out. When trouble arises, specialized skill is needed if there is any hope of locating it and putting it right. Are these specialized skills exclusive to professional philosophers? Not according to Midgley. The ability to identify the faulty concepts that underlie our thinking and cause us discomfort is often demonstrated by poets and artists who show us new visions of the world. Whether they are scholastically trained or not, Midgley argues that anyone engaged in working out the blockages of old ideas is conducting philosophical business. As a scholar and educator who uses philosophy to analyze how pop culture impacts our ideas about identity, Midgley's essay made me feel seen for the first time. Prior to joining a philosophy department, I did not consider myself a philosopher, but thanks to Midgley, I came to recognize that I too was conducting necessary philosophical business. Learning is not the private playground of the learned, Midgley argues. It belongs to and affects all of us. Thus, while pop culture may not always convey our most complex concepts, I argue that its impact on our everyday thinking make it an important site for philosophical plumbing. Comedian Alex Falcone, for example, produces 90-second social media videos that debunk some of our most entrenched assumptions and norms. In his popular series, Is It a Scam? Yup, he delves into the history of ideas behind things like the body mass index, gifted and talented programs, or manliness, to reveal that ideas which seem natural and inevitable often only serve the interests of an elite few. The discomfort we feel because our bodies do not match a certain ideal or because our gender does not align with the status quo points to the limits of these conceptual schemes. Greta Gerwig's 2023 Hollywood blockbuster Barbie is also a strong, if somewhat surprising, example of philosophy disguised as popular culture. The film presents a satirical fantasy that asks audiences to contemplate the stagnation and alienation that comes when only one type of person has power and influence. It examines impossible standards of beauty and perfection, and it critiques conceptual schemes that link human worth with consumerism. Like an intricate plumbing system which has gone untended, the Barbie movie reminds us that if we ignore our complexities as people, crises will certainly ensue. Draped in Mattel pink and packed with big-name celebrities, the Barbie movie is also about one of Socrates' most famous directives: know thyself. Public art can also frequently provoke philosophical business. Take, for instance, the Teeter-Totter Wall project installed at the US-Mexico border in 2019 by Ronald Rial and Virginia Sanfratello. Consisting of 3 bright pink metal seesaws, the artists slid the equipment through the slats and used the wall as a fulcrum for children and adults on both sides to ride. Generally an area beset by militarized policing, this event turned the space into one of genuine connection and joy for 40 extraordinary minutes. My colleagues and I had the pleasure of discussing this project with students here at Menlo College. Their reflections are a testament to the way that public art can invite philosophical plumbing. One student, who'd previously concluded that people are generally self-interested and violent, saw the children on both sides enjoying the seesaws and revised her thinking. She suggested that this project highlights our innate sense of play. The children on one side have not yet been taught to be fearful of or hateful towards the children on the other, she suggested. A second student argued that this project could teach us about interdependency and equality. It takes 2 to make it work, he noted. And if these people are of a similar build or they coordinate their movements just right, they may even enjoy mutual moments of levitation. The reflections of the first 2 inspired a third student to argue that Teeter-Totter Wall can help us subvert divisive political rhetoric. She said, "This shows us that borders aren't real. We are connected. We rely on each other. We rise and fall together," she said. Just by witnessing Teeter-Totter Wall, engaging in dialogue with their peers, and re-examining assumptions around human nature, citizenship, and geopolitical borders, Menlo students were able to reach conclusions that echoed the intentions of the artists themselves. In a social media post, Rial noted that the wall is a literal fulcrum for US-Mexico relations, and this event allowed for meaningful connections between children and adults on both sides, with the recognition that the actions on one side have a direct consequence for those on the other. I hope by now I've convinced you that popular culture can be a part of philosophy, but is that all there is to philosophical plumbing? Artists can highlight social problems and show us new visions of the world, but how do we go about enacting them? I'd like to return briefly to Raphael's painting, The School of Athens. Ancient Greek philosopher Plato, the wizard in the pink, was also concerned with mapping the path to a better world. He dreamed of creating an elite class of men who would spend their young lives learning the arts, engaging in philosophy and politics, perfecting their physiques, and mastering war games. After decades of self-improvement, these philosopher kings would return to their societies to serve as leaders, using their considerable gifts to bring about collective flourishing. As far as I know, this scenario has never actually come to pass. And in the US, a country historically averse to monarchies, I'm not sure it makes sense for us to wait around for magical kings to come save us from our woes. Mary Midgley didn't think this was the path forward either. If we are not content to live mired in the ideological muck of outdated social systems or ideas, we mustn't only dream of better worlds, we have to put in the hard work to achieve them. Midgley argues that philosophical plumbing is often painstaking, tedious, long-term work that cannot be done by those who situate themselves above society, but only by those willing to work within and below. We don't need someone who simply wants to oversee our house renovations. We only need those willing to crawl underneath our shared home. Furthermore, Midgley argues that philosophers cannot do it alone. All kinds of human functions and faculties are necessary. Allow me then to share this want ad from the universe. Philosophical plumbers needed. Whether you are casting a critical eye over your favorite show, creating new visions of the world, coding revolutionary tech, arguing cases in court, or caring for those in your community, your gifts are necessary for the work at hand. So, let's get dirty, shall we? Thank you.